I was thinking about the whole, basically you're the almost cliche of the tortured artist,
Right.
like the extreme productivity, like super bright, burning super fast. And I feel like the sort of final third of your book is your journey to sort of pace yourself a little bit, like
Yeah.
slow things down, like find some control over your mind and I don't know, rein in a little bit. And I'm curious if you think that kind of mania is required for the artistic output that you were creating. This is Climbing Gold. Can you be chill and
Ye-
still do the things that you have done in the past?
Well, I think I mean, it's just such a great question. And I do deconstruct the tortured artist trope in the book, where I say, look, like there's a myth here that needs to be deconstructed. Yes, oftentimes there's an overlap between specifically bipolar and the creative mind and the creative temperament. But because of that, and through time, we've built a sort of an archetype of the tortured artist, which is very, very seductive, right?
Yeah,
Because not
yeah,
only
totally.
does it excuse being tortured and allows people to sit in that, but in fact, it encourages it because it becomes an identity. And so there's a belief that's formed around that identity that I have to be fucked up to make meaningful things. I do not agree with that. I believe that it requires a huge amount of effort and self-reflection to change that narrative. Um, and I think that can be very hard. And I think that's a journey a lot of people don't want to take because it's very effortful, right? It's uncomfortable. And once you build an identity, it's very fucking hard to leave it behind. Um,
I
and the
mean,
same is true.
in my own limited way, I mean, I've sort of dealt with the same thing, just the sort of dark artist with soloing. It's like, do you
Right.
need to be super angstful to free solo at a high level? Do you need to be, upset about your life to push hard and perform well? And, in obviously in a totally different scale than what you describe in your book, but I would say my personal journey over the last 10 years has been kind of, can I still do hard things while living a peaceful, happy life with stable relationships and now a family? It's like, and
What do you think? I mean, do
yeah,
you think you
I
can?
think so. I think because that's kind of the thing in a lot of ways. I think, at least for me, stability gives you more of the framework you need to succeed at a high level. It's like stability allows you to train consistently, to not implode all the time. Because I think, I definitely in my 20s, I did a lot of the same, well, not the same kind of self-destructive behavior that you've done, but the same kind of self-sabotage, like binging on desserts or just like just festering on rest days and things, kind of going into a
Mhm.
dark hole on rest days where you're like, why am I even alive? Like if I'm not climbing today, this is totally stupid. And I think that just doesn't help you be the best version of you. It certainly doesn't help you succeed in any of the things you're doing. And I think that a big part of, sort of adulthood for me is figuring out how to still do hard things without all the emotional baggage around it.
I I totally agree. I believe that if you are using torture and pain as a mechanism to create, you have a far more limited capacity to do so. And that burnout can manifest in self-sabotage, in burning it all down, burning the success down. And you also make a really good point about structure. Structure is actually freedom. And when you create a framework of structure around your life, um, you have more energy because you're not blowing it. You're not like, it's like not off gassing in all sorts of directions. You're more able to direct it. But I think in some ways there's there's a beauty in living in the sort of that accelerated state and burning out because it leads you to that place. Rich Roll and I were talking about this where transformation, look, you never see somebody really successful who's balanced, but they learn to balance the imbalance with the quiet and they put structure around it. So they're learning to leverage and channel that energy into creativity by building structure to create freedom. It's all paradoxical. It's all sort of um, counterintuitive at times, and I think that the other component of this is that for myself, because of some of these internal beliefs that I had in these stories I was telling, I was oftentimes mistaking attention for love, right? And so I needed more and more and more and more and more of it. And that required that I burned bigger, hotter, faster, you know, more often to generate the sense of value that I was so deeply lacking.
That's interesting. I mean, did that work?
It never works. It works for a time. It always works for a time. You know, you've got and I was never wealthy, but like people get a mountain of cash. They have limitless resources to whatever they want. So the distraction and people always want to be around them. You know, people are drawn to fame like a moth to a flame. It is fucking crazy that, you know, how much people want to be around that. And when that happens, the person who's at the center of it basically has a hall pass to ignore real life. And they're giving themselves that hall pass, but eventually, as I found, that it was complete, it was a bottomless void. I always use like, it's like pouring water in a cracked vessel. Eventually you're just gonna, the crack's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's gonna break. You cannot fill it up. It will never be full. But like any drug, when you first do it, it feels astonishing, right? You're like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. But then you need more and more and more and more and more to just get back to the level. And when you think of that in terms of climbing, well, what are you doing? How do your goals keep amplifying to the point where you're stepping out onto a limb, whether it's free soloing or high altitude mountaineering, where now you are potentially, well, not potentially, you're increasing your risk.